Welcome to another Dynasty Pros Devy show. I'm Andy. I'm joined today by Tommy. We have a jam-packed episode today. We're going to talk early National Signing Day. All this and more after the intro. All right, Tommy, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing all right. Waiting for the weekend.
Yeah, it's going to get here soon enough. Let's go ahead and start with some quick hitters. I'll just talk about some guys that signed and then get your thoughts afterwards on all these guys that
Mhm.
won't be in the body of the show. Dylan Rayola, he signs with Nebraska. This will be he's gone to four different high schools and now committed to three different colleges. DJ Lagway, there was a concern that he may not sign with Florida, but he did, so he is fully committed to Florida. Texas Tech grabbed their highest rated recruit ever, Micah Hudson. He's my wide receiver one for the class. And then Mike Matthews signs with Tennessee. Tommy, what are your thoughts on all of these guys signing early?
Uh, Rayola, there's always concern whenever a guy has bounced around as much as he has. Is that a is that something ingrained in him? Is it a cultural problem? Is it a has he had personal issues at, at all these schools? I know he's a Nebraska legacy guy, so I mean maybe that was just the proper fit for him all along. But as far as Lagway goes, I know A&M and USC made a late push for him. Florida should count their lucky stars that they were able to hold on to him, especially with the way the rest of their class kind of unfolded. Micah Hudson signing with Texas Tech is it's a really big deal. Now, if they could just get a quarterback in there over the next couple of classes, I think that's going to be the main thing for them. Mike Matthews signing with Tennessee. I highly doubt he'll be the wide receiver one. He may not even be a starter, honestly, during his freshman year. They're still waiting to hear if Drew McCoy is going to come back. I would think he is. He's not going to be cleared to be able to run for teams until even after the draft. So I mean, there's really no reason for him to enter the draft. He should just come back and prove he's healthy. And then you got Dante Thornton. He'll be back. Chaz Nimrod, Caleb Webb, obviously Squirrel White, Chris Brazil from Tulane just committed today. There's a lot of competition there in that wide receiver room.
Yeah, it's a really deep receiving class, and someone's got to stand out. So, the spring camp and spring game will be interesting to watch with Tennessee, and hopefully Cameron Seldon gets some action next year. But let's go ahead and stay in the SEC. I want to talk first with Auburn. They got a pretty big class that came in. Um, Walker White, he's a four-star quarterback. For those of you who haven't been able to watch his tape, he's kind of a same mold as a Will Levis or a Tim Tebow type. He'll probably sit the first year. He might get some goal line packages here and there, but the main attraction of this receiving or the receivers for this class, Cam Cameron, he's one of those more of a physical jump ball guy. When I watch his tape, he's kind of like a T. Higgins type when he was at Clemson. Perry Thompson, another five-star kid, he is a physical receiver, very good to create separation. They also bring in a four-star Malcolm Simmons. He's more of a creator in space if you haven't watched his tape. And then Bryce Kane, he's probably my favorite of the four that have committed, but he might get lost in the fold. With Auburn, how do you view this upcoming year with Peyton Thorne as the quarterback? Rivaldo Fairweather had a pretty good first year at tight end. He comes back. Jarquez Hunter comes back. Where do you have Auburn, like their outlook for next year?
I be a lot of the same as what this year was for them. Peyton Thorne's gonna be their starting quarterback. I think it's a bridge year getting to those big time guys that they were able to sign. Now, obviously, you're probably going to see guys like Cam Cameron and Perry Thompson out there, just because 5-star pedigree says that they're probably going to get a lot of early playing time. Jarquez Hunter coming back, Rivaldo Fairweather coming back. Those are two pretty big time weapons for Auburn. I see probably another 7-5 type of season for them next year, actually.
In your supplemental drafts, if you're drafting towards the end of the first round and both of the 5-star receivers are there with Cam Cameron and Perry Thompson, between the two, which one would you be looking at?
Probably Cam Cameron, because like you said, I mean he's pretty comparable to T. Higgins. Anytime you're able to get that type of wide receiver towards the back end of a first round, that's actually not bad. You may could even sneak those guys kind of early to mid second.
Yeah. And then staying in the SEC, we're going to go to Alabama next. They got a 5-star quarterback in Julian Sain. Most of the services have Dylan Raiola as the QB1 for the class. I personally have Julian Sain. I've watched his tape, and to me, he's the most complete quarterback of the class. They were able to flip a 4-star running back in Kevin Riley. They kind of struck out on a couple of other guys and pretty much had to sell for him. As far as the receivers, 3 have signed. Amari Jefferson, he's a 4-star twitchy athlete. He's kind of like a creator in space, I want to say, is going to be his archetype. Then they have Aaron Hampton. He's a 4-star athlete that they flipped from Texas. He's kind of a slot build. And then you have another 4-star, Enrico Scott. He's kind of similar to Aaron Hampton. He's also a slot creator type. And then currently committed but unable to sign until February is a 5-star Ryan Williams. He is going to be a game changer. There is some word that he is visiting Auburn, so we have to see if Auburn's going to be able to flip him. But with all these guys coming for Alabama, and then you have Jalen Milroe, who's going to have a full offseason as a starter. You're going to have Isaiah Bond. Malik Benson still might be a thing there. And then, you have the running backs coming back. Where do you see Alabama as a team next year? And then is there a chance that Jalen Milroe, with a full offseason, can he jump into the first round next year of the NFL draft?
Going into next season, I think Alabama's probably ranked in the top 2 in the country. You're probably looking at them and probably Texas. And Alabama, Texas, Georgia probably be the top 3 teams in the country to start the season. All 3 being SEC programs also. But as far as their recruiting class goes, I really like Amari Jefferson. He's kind of a sore sub. It's a sore spot with me. Being from the Chattanooga area, Tennessee was really in on him, and then he chose Alabama. So that kind of hurt a little bit. But Milroe, he's going to have to improve on his intermediate passing game. He throws a great deep ball. I don't see the pure passing ability from him though. Of course, a lot of people said the same thing about Jalen Hurts. Didn't have a whole lot of pure passing ability, and now look at what he's doing. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So. That stuff can be developed. But yeah, they got a good class. Kevin Riley coming in, is a really good running back, probably one of the top 5 running backs in the entire country. Isaiah Bond, though, I think is definitely their wide receiver 1 next year.
And then next up will be Georgia. They lost out on Dylan Raiola, but they were able to hang on to Ryan Puglisi, who is pretty much a consensus top 10 quarterback for the class. They bring in a really good running back in Nathaniel Frazier. He's someone that when I watch, he is very electric, but he has never had a full workload, and that is a little bit of a concern. They also bring in another running back, Dwight Phillips. He's more of a lighter framed kid. I think he's like 170 pounds. So he projects to be more of a third down scat back type. The only receiver that they really bring in of note is not Natarian Tuggle. He's a four-star receiver. When I watch his tape, he's kind of like a George Pickens light kind of a mold. Now you have Carson Beck returning next year, and he's going to be aiming for the quarterback one for the class. The running backs are stacked. You have both Branson Robinson and Roger Robinson returning. Andrew Paul is still sticking around. Trevor Etienne is pretty much crystal ball to Georgia. Everyone has him at 100% there. They bring in London Humphreys uh, to possibly be the wide receiver one. We know Georgia wants to win on defense and run the ball and throw it to their tight ends. With this class coming in and their outlook next year, does Carson Beck have to make it? I won't say the playoffs. Do they have to? Does Carson Beck have to show out more to be in the Heisman vote and quarterback one for next year?
I don't think there's any doubt that they're going to be in the playoffs. I mean, it's going to a 12-teamer, so they really have to really fall off in order to not make the playoff, I think. But as far as Carson Beck goes, he is my QB1 for the 2025 class. I mean, he would have pushed for QB2 in this class if he would have came out. I would have had him and Drake May very, very close together. But him winning the Heisman isn't necessarily, I mean, that's never going to be their main goal. They're not really going to push him they're not really going to have that type of campaign for him. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen organically, kind of the way Stetson Bennett did, a couple years ago. But coming into the year, he's got to be one of the top 4 or 5 favorites, right? I mean, and then their running back class, or their running back room is, like you said, it's loaded with Branson Robinson, Roderick Robinson. Etienne's probably going to end up there. Andrew Paul may even be the best of all of them. He just hadn't been able to get on the field because he's been hurt. So, I mean, that anytime you're going to run 4 deep in a running back room like that, that's tough. I mean, that's elite depth. Wide receivers where they're going to, as far as I know, Ra Thomas and Dom Lovett are coming back, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. And then you throw in London Humphreys. Humphreys was, I mean, he was okay, but he wasn't even the best wide receiver at Vanderbilt. I mean, my opinion, Will Shepherd was.
I wonder if my only thing with Georgia is just that receiving group that they have. No one's been able to step up. I don't know if London Humphreys is the answer. I don't know if the guys that they have currently are the answer. If they're going to have to keep relying on their tight ends when the games are close, like, they're going to have Texas and Alabama, Carson Beck needs to find his go-to guy. Where do you think his go-to guy is going to be next year? Is it going to be one of the tight ends?
I mean, yeah, if you look at the way that they've operated the last couple of seasons, you're probably looking at Delp and Sperlin. Maybe even Lucky Lawson gets involved there. Denilon Morset is still there at wide receiver too, right? Or did he transfer out? Pretty sure he stayed.
I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he stayed there. He was a 4-star recruit last year, so he may be another guy who kind of steps into the fold there.
And then moving into the SEC would be Texas. Texas, they have a loaded class as far as top talent goes. They have Jarrett Gibson, a running back. He's a high 4-star kid. He's a real electric runner. And then you have Christian Clark, who's also another 4-star back. He's actually the running back that I prefer between the two, and that's against consensus. Most people like Jarrett Gibson. They do retain 5-star wide receiver Ryan Wingo. And for those that haven't seen him, he's more of a speedster yak creator. I kind of comp him to DJ Moore. Now, Quinn Ewers is coming back next year. They're going to have Jonte Cook, DeAndre Moore, who hasn't done anything this year. And they're going have Matthew Golden come in as a transfer, the running back room is loaded. You have C.J. Baxter, Jadon Blue, and no word on Jonathan Brooks yet. And then you have Arch Manning waiting in the wings. So the future looks bright at Texas. Can Ryan Wingo come in as a true freshman and make an impact? I mean, can right now I would say it's safe to say that Matthew Golden and Jonathan Cook are slotted in as the starters.
Mm.
Do you think Ryan Wingo can day one step in and earn some reps?
Probably because who he's with the guys he is competing against for that wide receiver 3 spot. I mean, you're looking DeAndre Moore, Ryan Niblett. I don't see why he couldn't beat out those guys in order to get some PT.
I think he's one of the few blue chip receivers I can get playing time right away. I mean, obviously Micah Hudson's one; he's gonna be playing right away. But I think Ryan Wingo can get that job on the outside with Jonte Cook starting at the slot. So I think he's someone that's kind of sneaky. I know that the services are kind of down on him, but I can see him getting playing time from day one and being able to make an impact with Quinn Ewers. Um, let's go to the Big Ten. Let's go with Ohio State first. Now, Ohio State lost out on a lot of recruits last second. They were able to keep quarterback Aaron Nolan. He's a 4-star guy. When I watch his tape, he's more of a game manager, kind of a Bridgestone guy. I don't think he's their next game changing quarterback. They were able to hang on to James Peoples, who's a 4-star running back. We don't know if Travion Henderson's coming back or not. There's mumblings that he might. And then for the wide receivers, they were able to keep their top 2 targets. The number 1 overall recruit in Jeremiah Smith. If you haven't watched his tape, he's a very physical receiver, very polished receiver. A lot of people compliment to Julio Jones, and I do see that compliment on watch his tape. And then the guy that's kind of under the radar is a fellow 5-star receiver, Mylan Graham. He's a very speedy, great route running receiver. He has great footwork, a great set of release packages. I think he's the guy that's underrated. But what we have to consider with Ohio State, they have Carnell Tate and Brandon Innes from last year. Let's say for this exercise, Emeka Egbuka comes back. If he comes back, which of these 4 receivers, maybe 2 of these 4 receivers, are going to miss out and be a miss year one?
Well, let's not forget that Noah Rogers was another big time wide receiver recruit last year for them. They also bring back Jalen Ballard. So I mean, they have a really stacked wide receiver room, as they always do. But if Egbuka comes back, you're looking at your 3 guys being Tate, Enos, and Egbuka. Jeremiah Smith kind of fits that same type of Carnell Tate, Marvin Harrison Jr. type of mold. So it almost seems to me like he would be behind Tate. Whereas Graham kind of fits that typical Ohio State receiver type of mold with Garrett Wilson and Egbuka and kind of got guys like that. So of course, same with Enos though. Enos kind of fits that same mold too. So they all kind of mirror each other a little bit. So I think it's almost like one of those things that if one guy goes down, you don't really miss a whole lot because you just bring in somebody else who's almost the exact same type of player. But I think it's going to be one of those things where it's kind of you're waiting your turn to get in.
It's kind of like this year with Carnell Tate and Brandon Innes.
Right.
I think coming in, most people felt that Carnell Tate would slot into the outside and Brandon Innes would be slotting to the slot. And coming into the season, Ohio State did switch out the rotation at wide receiver. Now, what happened and what played out is they didn't really do that this year. They only really mixed in Carnell Tate. I am afraid of Mylan Graham missing out and being the odd guy out, especially if Egbuka returns, just because I don't think you have the option not to play Jeremiah Smith. He's been toying with Florida State and Miami. He's visited Florida State, I believe, like 8 times in the past 2 years.
Well, he's
So,
from there.
yeah. So, in this NIL world with Ohio State, you don't have that luxury to sit Jeremiah Smith. He's going to want playing time. So, I wonder if Ohio State themselves, if they're hoping Emeka Egbuka shows out in the bowl game, and Egbuka can then show to the NFL scouts, hey, I missed a year due to injury, but I'm still the same guy. And then he goes out, because if Egbuka leaves, it's a much clearer pathway. With Egbuka staying, it just creates a logjam, and it's a mess. And that could cause more guys from Ohio State to end up transferring out by the end of the year. And I think
Yeah.
that's the big concern.
Yeah, and they've had that log jam for the last several years. I mean, you look at a guy like Kyon Grays, who was a big time recruit coming out of high school. He hadn't even seen the field.
Yeah. And then one guy that they lost ends up going to Oregon, and that's Jeremiah McClellan. He's a 4-star guy. And with him going to Oregon, I think that's a much better pathway for him. He would have for sure gotten lost at Ohio State, but now going to Oregon has a lot of vacated targets. So he's one of the two that they were able to flip. The other guy is Ryan Pelham, that they were able to flip from USC. Both of these guys are creators after the catch, which kind of fits what Oregon wants to do. And then they also have Dylan Gresham coming in. I think he's more of a returner the first year. He's more of a project when I watch his tape. Now, they do have Jurion Dickey, that was the high 5-star recruit, and it just came out today that he had a torn meniscus, and it's just now that he's starting to feel 100%. Coming in next year, Dylan Gabriel's the quarterback. You have a whole new receiving core. Which of these receivers are you targeting if you're doing a startup?
Probably McClellan. He has the better build. Pelham's a little Pelham. Him and Pelham are the same height. McClellan just has a nicer build to him. More, but they're both smallish wide receivers. With about 5'10", 5'11". I think McClellan maybe about 185. Pelham's about 170. So it's whenever you're looking at 185 to 170, that's a big difference, especially at 5'10", 5'11". You going, playing the slot, coming across the middle of the field, you have to be able to take a little bit of a pounding there. I would kind of look for them to even go out and get a transfer here. Evan Stewart is right there. If Phil Knight has all that Nike money, pony up and bring him in, he would easily be the wide receiver one there next year.
Yeah, I think Oregon's in that weird spot where they've been dipping into the portal, getting guys, but now all of a sudden, like, the cupboard's kind of bare at wide receiver. And if you have shares in a C2C or in a Devy league with Jurion Dickey, are you using this news to sell him and try to recoup about 85% of your value? Or are you just going to try to hang on to him?
Probably just keeping him. I mean, torn meniscus isn't hard to come back from. It's not like it was an ACL injury, nothing. It was torn meniscus. Those are fairly easy recoveries. I mean, just the type of physical specimen he is, you want to see what you got. I think if you were to go and trade him for a fraction of the original cost, I think you'd end up regretting it.
I think with him, I think there's enough people that are down on him that you could probably trade him for possibly like a fourth round sub pick and then maybe a CFF asset. Because if you if you took Jaron Dickey in a sub draft last year, it was probably in the first round. A lot of people had him as the wide receiver two, if not the wide receiver one of the class. So you spent a big chunk, and then you saw him not do anything. And it comes out that he's pretty much been hurt all year. I would imagine that there's probably enough people that just want out that if you offer points, a fourth round sub and a CFF guy to whoever that has Jurion Dickey, and they can get guy that's getting points, I think you can get that done if you're into Jurion Dickey.
Sure.
Now let's move over to the ACC, and we're going to start with Miami. Miami was able to flip Jordan Lyle from Ohio State, and that was a pretty good get for them. But for me, their wide receivers are the guys that I'm looking at. I absolutely love JoJo Trader. He's a 4-star kid. I actually have him in my top 6 receivers for this class. If you haven't seen him play, he's a really good route runner, smooth. He is just a work of art when you watch him play. And then not to be outshadowed is Nye Carr. Nye Carr is also a fluid athlete. He creates separation, has very good footwork. He's someone that's also pretty exciting. And they were able to hang on to another wide receiver, Chance Robinson. He's going to be more of that speedy field stretcher type. The only thing that worries me is who's going to be throwing it to them. Do you think they eventually land Cam Ward, or is it going to be someone else?
I think they eventually land Cam Ward. If not Miami, then Ohio State, Florida State. But as far as I know, he's really only looking at Miami and Florida State right now. Haven't heard much else about that. But yeah, you're right about Nye Carr. To me, he reminds me a lot of, remember Santana Moss?
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of that type of guy.
Yeah. JoJo Trader and Nye Carr, both of them are in my top 12 for the class. Both guys, their tapes are great. Now, if you were picking one for a sub draft when you're doing your C2C drafts, in the summer, which one would you be targeting if both are available?
I actually like, as much as I like Carr, I probably like Trader a little bit better. It's like you said, I think he's a better route runner. I think he's probably going to be the guy who consumes more targets. And in a C2C league, that's what I'm looking for. Guy who's going to get the volume.
And I do think it is kind of concerned that Cam Ward hasn't, signed with them yet. He visited with them last weekend. Miami's been in on like 4 or 5 other quarterbacks. It's definitely a place that's on the up with Miami. They just need to get a quarterback. So hopefully they can get Cam Ward.
Well, let's also remember with these transfers, Miami is a private school, so they may have different type of different type of academic standards. So there may be some type of issue with transcripts, with credits transferring, stuff like that. So I mean, all that stuff has to get cleared before somebody transfers in.
Yeah. And let's stay in the state of Florida. We'll talk Florida State next. They were able to get a 4-star quarterback, Luke Kroenhoek, and he's a converted wide receiver. When I watch his tape, he's really raw. He has a good arm, but when I'm watching his tape, sometimes the game at the high school level looks too fast for him. So I don't think he's going to be ready probably for the first 2 years. And I know they've been in on Cam Ward and DJU as well. So that'll be interesting on who ends up going as the portal quarterback. But they were able to get Cam Davis. He's a 4-star running back. I think he's more a project than what most people are projecting. He played quarterback in high school. He's got a really good frame. He's a real twitchy athlete, but with him playing the quarterback, he saw all those open running lanes and he took off. My only concern is if he's asked to line up as a traditional running back, will the game be too fast for him and will the holes close up a little on the fast side for him? As far as the receivers go, they were able to get a 4-star Elijah Moore. If you haven't watched his tape, he's more of that typical Florida State big bodied receiver, contested catch guy, doesn't create much separation, someone that has the strong hands. The guy that doesn't fit that mold is the guy that I really like, and that's LaWayne McCoy. He's a really good route runner. He's a very silky smooth athlete. When you turn on the tape, you just watch it over and over. I know I've watched his tape probably a good 3-4 times. With Florida State, they lose Keon Coleman. He's opted out of the bowl game, so it's safe to say he's going to the NFL draft. Johnny Wilson is leaving. I believe their tight end also opt out of the bowl game, I believe.
Jaheim
But
Bell.
coming back next year for the receiving group is going to be Hakeem Williams and Vandrevius Jacobs. Do you have any concerns with Florida State next year in their receiving core?
Depends on who they bring in at quarterback. If they bring in Cam Ward, then I'm not real worried about it because he's proven he can throw the ball all around the field. If they bring in DJU, that's a little concerning for that wide receiver room.
And with Florida State, I believe they scheduled a Board of Regents meeting tomorrow to possibly leave the conference.
Right.
What do you think happens there? Do you think they're going to somehow finally escape? Because they've been trying to get out of that conference for over a year and a half.
It depends on if they get the state of Florida to legislate something in favor for them, because as far as it's pretty ironclad. They're stuck until 2036 unless they can find some other loophole.
That TV contract is horrible.
Yeah, which I think that being tied to the ACC this year left them out of the playoff. The ACC was terrible, man.
Yeah.
And when you're the only team in there who's any good at all, and if you have and then on top of that you have roster concerns because your star quarterback gets hurt, doesn't matter if you went 13-0. You're going to get left out because you played crap competition. The best team that they played all season was LSU, and LSU proved to be kind of a second tier, maybe even third tier SEC team. Because obviously they were behind Georgia and Alabama and even Ole Miss. You could even argue that they were behind Missouri, even though they beat them. Florida State's schedule didn't do them any favors because they were in the ACC.
Do you think this is a precursor for eventually, in the long game of it eventually being just the Big Ten and the SEC, and then you just have the rest?
I kind of like what Chip Kelly said last week when he was talking about how just put all the Power 5 teams in one pot, and then put all the Group of Fives in another, have 64 teams in the Power Conference, and then and then play it out from there.
Because it used to be, if you won your conference, you're good. Right. So if you're Florida State, you win your conference, it's now a 12-team playoff. You're gonna make the playoffs. You're gonna be fine.
And on a normal year that probably would have happened. But this year, hell, Georgia got left out at 12-1 after being ranked number 1 for basically 3 straight years. So, I mean,
Yeah.
they took one loss and fell from 1 to 6. So it's obvious that the top 4, 5, 6, even 7 teams, possibly even 8, if you look that far down, were all really elite. So somebody's going to get left out, and Florida State just happened to be that because of the issues that they had towards the end of the season.
And then once we move to a 12 team, then we're going to talk about, the team number 13, team number 14 being left out. And then,
Right.
We're going to have talks about it should be 16. And it's like when do you cut that off? And when do you say, enough's enough, So
Well, you had that same issue in basketball every
Mhm.
March, because every March there's always those teams on the bubble who don't make it, who feel like they should have. So those last 4, 4, 5, 6 teams that got left out of the tournament are like, why do we get left out? Well, I mean,
Yeah,
because you were the 67th team in the country.
pretty much. Now let's move on to the ACC by proxy, and that's Notre Dame. They're technically an independent, but they play about 5 ACC teams a year, and they're in the ACC for the other sports. They were able to get CJ Carr. He's a 4-star quarterback. His tape's okay. I mean, that's probably the best thing I
Do
can
you think
say.
he's better? Do you think he's better than Kenny Minchie?
No, no. I think Kenny Menchie. If Notre Dame doesn't go into the portal next year, I think Kenny Minchie wins that job easily. CJ Carr checks down too much at the high school level, and that's never a good thing. And so when I'm watching Kenny Minchie and I'm watching CJ Carr, I see a quarterback who is ready, and that's Kenny Minchie, and then I see a quarterback who needs to develop more, and that's CJ Carr. I honestly don't know why he is rated as high as he is. Of all the other top 15 quarterbacks, he's the only one that really checks down a lot. And he checks down a lot. I just don't see it there with him. So I don't think he ever becomes a full-time starter, let alone an impact player for Notre Dame. But one guy who I think will be an impact player is they got a running back, Kedron Young. He's a 4-star running back, and I really like him. I typically don't like running backs who are about 6 feet tall and 225 pounds. I typically don't go for that build. So when I watched his tape, I saw a guy who was like he's a very thickly framed kid. He's well built. But man, not only will he take on contact, he has the lateral quickness to evade. And that quickness I did not see from someone with that size and that frame. So he's someone that I really like. And I want to say he's going to be better than Audrey Estime. I
Do you remember?
think Yeah, I was never that big on Estime, but Estime, he proved his worth in season. So I think when it's all said and done, I think Young is gonna be probably better than him. Jeremiah Love will probably get the start based on seniority, but I think Keyshawn Young, when they start getting in close games and they need to get those extra yards, I think that's when he'll get his run, and then I think he'll start to get more and more playing time. So he's someone that I like. They also got in a 4-star running back, Nias Williams. He's more of a pass catching running back, so I think he might be like a third down back. They have a really good receiver coming in, Cam Williams. He's a 5-star receiver. He's exactly the opposite of what I think a Notre Dame receiver is. He's very twitchy. He's explosive. He's a speedy receiver that can take the top off defenses. And he's someone that I really like. When I watch his tape, I kind of comp him to a Christian Watson. They also bring in a 4-star Micah Gilbert. He's more that traditional Notre Dame receiver that's not quite athletic enough. With Riley Leonard coming in, and they bring in a whole new receiving core. Bo Collins, Chris Mitchell, and then Jaden Greathouse stayed. With Notre Dame, they will play their true freshman wide receivers. We saw that this year. All 3 of them got some playing time. Is there a chance that Cam Williams, when it's all said and done, will be the wide receiver one his true freshman season?
I mean, it's possible. Bo Collins has trouble staying on the field with due to injury, so he's always getting nicked up here and there. So it's very possible Cam Williams at least gets pretty good run. But I'm a lot like you. The guy, the guy I like in that group is Kedron Young. Um, you remember Jamal Lewis?
Yes.
I mean, roughly the same size coming out of high school, same type of build, same type of skill set. Jamal Lewis was obviously a freak athlete, but I'm interested to see what type of real athleticism Kedron Young has.
Yeah, because those are not my kind of running backs. So I was not expecting to like that tape as much as I did, and yeah, he's someone that I'm really looking forward to. Now, we got some early signings done, and of all the early signings, Tommy, who are your favorite under the radar guys?
I've got two of them. I really like the Nick Marsh, wide receiver from Michigan State, big-bodied wide receiver. Aiden Childs is going to need that moving forward. Um, I mean, Nick Marsh may even be a guy who comes in and contributes right away for them. 6'3", 200 pounds, three-sport athlete in high school, ran track, played basketball. Very, very similar to a Keon Coleman type of guy. And then another guy I really like is Tyler Cherry, quarterback for Indiana. 6'4", 220, prototypical quarterback. He is actually Indiana's highest quarterback recruit in school history, which is saying something because Michael Penix Jr. was a pretty highly touted quarterback coming out of high school too.
Yeah, he decommitted from Duke and ends up in Indiana, and Indiana is making some. They're making some waves in the portal, and they're trying to build something there. So Tyler Cherry is that key for that class. My under the radar guy is Day Day Farmer. Initially, he was a Pitt commit, and then he decommitted, ended up committing to UCF, and at the very last minute, ends up committing to West Virginia. From all indications, from what I was digging and researching, it sounds like West Virginia promised him some playing time, so that's always a good thing. So he ends up in West Virginia. He is a guy that I absolutely love. He's outside the top 300 in the composites, and that's primarily due to him being hurt this year. He missed 6 games due to injury, but he did come back towards the end of the season, so everything's fine. But if you haven't seen him, he's more of a crafty route runner. He has very good body control. He also is a physical player. He also plays in the secondary, and he will lay the wood. Now, he's going to be playing wide receiver, probably in the slot. He's about 5'11", 170 pounds, give or take. He will not be an early enrollee. So he's not coming in the summertime. But when I watch his tape, he gives me Zay Flower vibes all day long. He's someone that I'm really interested in, and he's someone that I've been hyping up pretty much lately a lot.
Yeah, I've seen you tweet about him.
Yeah, he's someone that there are some guys when you watch the tape, you just can't wait to move on to the next guy. And then there are guys that when you watch the tape and you're done with it, and that tape just stays in your head. And I was talking to Noah Green. I was privately talking to him, and I was telling him, I was like, that tape is just ingrained in my head. I just keep seeing that tape over and over. And so he's someone that I believe in the composites. He's wide receiver 66, 68. I have him as wide receiver 15 for the class. So I'm going to have possibly 100% rostership of him in all C2C sub drafts. I am going to try to walk away with him in all my drafts.
Yeah,
But
because you could really probably almost get him for free.
mm-hmm, yeah. Yeah. You can probably get him for free, and I'll probably take him like in the ninth round just to make
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
So that's probably my goal for the summer, and we'll have a lot of shows in the off season with strategy and how
Just make
to formulate your drafts and stuff.
Just make sure you're not hyping him up too much because somebody might steal him from you.
I know. Yeah, I had a guy send me a DM on Twitter, and he was like, you know, like he's actually in one of my leagues, but I didn't know. And he was like, hey, thanks for giving me, someone to point for, because I'm looking at all of our leagues, and you have Casey Concepcion in every single one of your leagues, and I'm gonna try to get you on day day. I'm like, good luck with that. I'm gonna get him early, so good luck with that. I have him ranked wide receiver 15.
Now that I know you're targeting him around round 9, I may try to snipe him round 7 from you.
Watch he ends up being like a round 2 pick.
Because you've hyped him up so much. Now all of a sudden he's gone viral.
Yeah, and then he does absolutely nothing. All right, Tommy. Where can we find you on X, and what are you currently working on?
You can find me on X at Dynasty Pros Tom. Always doing back end stuff for Dynasty Pros football. Whenever Andy puts out an article, or whenever SC puts out an article, I get those edited and put up. Also, I do a lot of other sports stuff over at Total Apex Sports. Just put out an article earlier this morning about who the devil could be in AEW. So, like I said, tons of different sports that I do over there. But as far as fantasy football, always here on dynastyprosfootball.com, always here on the YouTube on the Devy show with you and SC and JT. Yeah, I mean, Dynasty season's coming, so there's gonna be a lot of content coming out.
Yeah. And then you can find me at Andy_fam1. Starting in 2024, we'll still be doing weekly player profiles for get you ready for the 2024 rookie drafts. And then every Friday, we'll start giving you these freshman Fridays, so you can kind of, get a lot of these player profiles, get you ready for your sub drafts this summer. And then we'll be doing 2 shows a week, every Tuesday and every Thursday. And then until next time, before that,